This episode is brought to you by John Blake Sales Breakthrough Solutions, helping you to at least double the amount of leads that you get that convert into paying clients.
Welcome to the Master Dealmaker's Secrets podcast. And now, here's sales growth strategist, John Blake.
Okay, so I have got Mick Hawes with me. I am really looking forward to today's discussion. Mick and I have interviewed one another previously, and over the years, we've been able to share a lot of incredible insights to each other's audiences. I was on Mick's podcast a couple of weeks ago and thought it would be awesome to get Mick on today for Master Dealmaker Secrets. So Mick, welcome, mate. Good to chat again.
Mate, it is. It's always enjoyable, lots of fun. We have a few laughs. We may even say something profound. You never know.
You never know, and that's why we record it, right? Because you just never know when someone's
you can always delete it.
Brilliant, yeah. even if we don't say so ourselves. So we were just talking before I hit record about your particular process. You work with a lot of builders, people in trades type businesses, and you mentioned that there were three things that you have been working with your clients on that have created the massive difference. And the one that I in particular was intrigued to find out and drill down a bit more on was this the sales process that you help your builders to put in place. And the thing that I think is brilliant about it is that, and I'm going to get you to expand on this in a minute, but the thing that I think is brilliant is that there are certain step-off points or certain junctures within that process, and they represent a deeper buy-in for the client at each stage of the process, but they also serve a really valuable purpose in terms of bringing that client up to speed so that they know what to expect and keep themselves informed. So I'd love for us to be able to drill down on that, and perhaps even the other two things that you teach your clients that you have found to be more valuable as well. So, yeah. Mate, I'll hand it over to you. Really excited to get stuck into today's discussion. So, what maybe also just to start off with, you might give us a bit more of a background on Builder's Business Black Belt and a bit more of the Mick Hawes journey that's led to today.
Well, I was born in. We first met, I believe, in Brighton, Les Sands at a seminar, and like we've crossed paths a lot since. And in relation to, I guess how I ended up learning or putting together this process that you want me to elaborate on was through a mutual coach. So,
yes,
I've got a coach called Taki Moore, business coach that coaches business coaches. We were in that group together. We ran into each other again, had a good old time. And he was responsible for me niching into builders. So that's kind of how I got started. I'd been in performance coaching for ages. So back in the early 90s, we started our own business, and it was kind of just personal development stuff, and it evolved into business a little bit. And then I had a little bit of a left turn into elite sports. So I was working with, the Tassie cricket team, the Victorian cricket team. I was working with Tennis Australia, flying around the country, teaching all of the state and national coaches how to coach the mental and emotional side of things, so the performance side of things. Eventually, started to work with the professional tennis players. Got a phone call one day from Samantha Stozer. I thought it was, a prank, wrong number. Can you fly to Florida? Can you come and do some coaching with me in Florida? It's like, wow. What do you say,
Yeah. Hang on, let me think about that.
I'll check my calendar. And,
yeah.
See, I might have to clean the windows or something. And that was all great fun. And I did learn a lot from the perspective that there are so many parallels to an elite athlete and an entrepreneur and an elite high performance team and an effective business. So it was a fantastic learning experience. But at the end of the day, I was still the general run of the mill business coach, doing the one-to-one stuff traditionally that you would experience from business coaches. And I met Taki, and he said, consider doing one-to-many, doing the group coaching. And at the same time, you need to niche, And it was one of those things I was telling businesses that I needed to do, and I wasn't doing it myself,
Yeah.
You take my advice, it's been no use to me.
Yeah.
And so I went through a process of identifying who I wanted my niche to be. And one of the criteria was I wanted to work with businesses where their customers were driven to them by a desire, not a need.
Got it.
It was a really interesting exercise. And believe it or not, there's around about 2,400 different types of small businesses around the globe. When I looked, there was a list on the internet.
Yeah.
Baker, butcher, candlestick maker, all of that sort of thing. And there was less than 50 that I found in that list where their customers were driven to them by a want rather than a need. And what I mean by that, say the difference between an electrician and a plumber and a builder. People call their electrician or their plumber, they call the plumber because the toilet's blocked, or they call the electrician because the lights are out.
Yep.
They call the builder because they have a desire, they have a dream. There's something that they want. They need their toilet unblocked and they need their lights back on, but we want a renovation, an extension, or a new home.
Yeah.
And I love that because it's all about building relationships and trust and giving people just a memorable experience. So I ended up with three, when I saw Taki, ended up with three options. Hair and beauty, believe it or not, was one of the options, if you can imagine me involved in that crowd. Golf is another one. People don't play golf because they have to.
No, true.
They want to. I don't know why they want to. I used to be a golf tragic and I still don't understand it. And then there was builders, and it ended up being a no-brainer because my dad was a builder. I've been in the building game as a tradesperson, for most of my life as well. So that's where we ended up.
Awesome.
And off we went. And I built a program, and then I wanted to build a secondary program, and I took it to my coach, and he said, it's too long. It's got too much in it. This is what you need to do. You need to answer this question. And it was a life-changing question for us. And that was, if you could teach your builders 3 things only, meaning that you could only teach them those 3 things and you weren't allowed to teach them anything else that would benefit their business, just 3 things. What would those 3 things be? And so the first thing was mindset and personal effectiveness, because it's at the foundation of everything.
Yeah.
The second was a qualification process for their business. And the third was profit first.
Yeah.
If you want to know about profit first, just go get the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what you are asking about is this middle process. We call it the quality client pathway. It's a qualification process. I've learned so much about sales from you, and I love it. I love the philosophy of it. I love the science of it. And I found that most builders are awful at it.
Yeah, they are.
And so we decided, instead of even talking about sales, because it has a certain connotation in the builder's mind, that they need to become a salesperson, and they're not that sort of person. We just stopped talking about it, and we started talking about a qualification process where, instead of the builder stands in front of the prospect, and juggles fire and juggles a bowling ball and apple.
Yeah, does the old sing and dance routine.
And
dog and pony show.
Yeah. Instead of doing that, we flip the script and we create a process for them where the prospect is now the talent on the stage of Australia's Got Talent, and the builder is on the judging panel. and the builder decides whether they go through to the next round or not.
I love that.
And just
I love
changing that mindset, that concept has changed everything. There are some challenges because many builders still see being awarded the project as the prize. And I need to coach them to understand that with their systems, their process, their philosophy, their commitment to the quality of their customers' experience, the builder is actually the prize. The prospect.
So true. Like
prize.
I've worked with a handful of display home builders over the years, and in Perth, I don't know what it's like in Tassie. You're still in Tassie, aren't you?
I am, but most of our members are all over the country.
Yeah. They have these display home villages.
Yep.
And there's a street.
Yep.
And all the competitors have all got their display homes on that street. And I went and mystery shopped a couple of them on when I was doing some prep to be able to do the work with them. And you see the families all lined up at the front of the street, and they just collecting like catalogs,
show bags,
and it's like you feel like you see them at the front of the street, and they're just about to start their onslaught, run the gauntlet of these display homes, and I could hear like the Wild West music in the background, like the and the other thing is that there's this, it becomes like, for couples, it's an activity, like, going and playing mini golf. And a lot of the reps would tell me that a lot of these people, they haven't got a block. They haven't got the money to buy a block. And so it's all just pie in the sky stuff.
Yep.
They just want to walk through it because it's a fun thing to do as a couple for this particular thing that they might do one day, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I know many, many years ago, back in the late 80s, just after Julie and I got married, there was exactly that place, just maybe 3 minutes drive up the road from where we lived. And we used to go there most weekends.
Wow.
Just dreaming.
Yeah. So there was there was a massive, and I think still is in so many situations, a massive opportunity to flip that script. So I'm super excited to hear, how you did that.
Yeah. The basically, if I can somehow build a word picture, the qualification process that we have is basically made up of 4 what we call behavioural hurdles.
Yep.
And the behavioural hurdle is very small in the beginning, and each hurdle that the prospect jumps over, they get presented with the next hurdle. But the beauty of creating behavioural hurdles, and I'll give you the example of the first one, when the prospect rings up the builder, I encourage them, rather than just start to take information and get into a conversation, to offer a questionnaire, send out a questionnaire via text or email, and present it or pre-frame it in, I really want to do my best to help you. I want to do it as quickly as possible and get you what you want, or what you're looking for as quickly as possible. The best way to do that is I'll shoot you out this questionnaire. If you could fill that out and send it back to me straight away, when do you think you would get that back to me? So that's the first hurdle, is, are you willing to follow my process? I have a process. The first step is a questionnaire. Are you willing to follow it? It's just a small behavioral hurdle.
Yep.
If a person says, dude, I'm not interested in your questionnaire, I just want a price. Like, it's impossible for a builder to give a price.
No.
On anything over the phone.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a total waste of time. So
a price on what?
Gathering the right info.
A price on what?
Yeah. Yeah. Where? Like,
on a house.
Like, there are
really?
that many variables, it's incredible. So
Yeah.
this is it's a little test. It's not a deal breaker. It's just a little test.
Yep.
But obviously, if you stick to your guns and the person says, I'm not interested in your questionnaire, you say, yeah, I can fully understand that. This isn't for everyone. I do have a couple of numbers here for, we call him Bruce. Bruce is the builder that we want to refer people who deserve them to up the road. And you help them by giving them a number or two of somebody else.
Yeah.
But you get them out of your business immediately, because that is a massive red flag. The second little part of that hurdle is if I said, John, when could you get that back to me? And I let you set that deadline. But all I'm fundamentally doing is setting a deadline. You set it. I'm just now going to observe how well you follow up what you say you're going to follow up. So remember, I'm on the judging panel now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm looking at your behavior. So will you fill out the questionnaire is kind of what I'm trying to do. And will you get it back to me when you say you're going to get it back to me? So it's just a small behavioral hurdle. But in front of every behavioral hurdle, I like to put a step.
Yep.
So the person can step up onto that step. And it's a very effortless action to step over the hurdle, because I've given you all of the reasons and benefits for you if you jump over this hurdle. If you don't jump over the hurdle, we don't go to the next step, and it's about that easy.
Yep.
So we don't progress. Traditionally, prospect calls builder. Builder says, yep, yeah, we'll drop around. We'll come and see you. They gather all of the information. They can spend upwards of 40 hours and gathering other trades, putting a price together, email it out to the client. If you're interested in getting started, give me a call. And what they didn't realize was that prospect was just price checking the builder that they'd already got a price from.
Correct.
To see whether they were in the ballpark. You were never, ever in the running.
Yeah, you were just window dressing.
Yeah, it was just disrespectful. Like, I hate it with a passion. And so it just doesn't happen in black belt. That black belt members, prospects pay considerable amount of money to get a quote done. They pay the money and the quote gets done.
Got it.
So
what happens after they get the questionnaire back?
So questionnaire, based, like if they do what they say and they send the questionnaire back, you'll have some information there that will let you know whether it's worth having an extended phone call with them.
Yep.
To start to gather a bit more meaningful information. So you're aware of the triage conversation. Triage. Yep. I was in an ambulance just the other day. I had gout on the knee. In fact, I forgot to tell you that I'd just been to the dentist this afternoon, and I only got feeling back in my face about 5 minutes before we started this conversation.
Oh, well, that would have been entertaining.
But I'm good now.
Yeah.
You go into the hospital, and the first thing they do is they triage you. They find out at what level the emergency is. Can you wait, or do we get this bloke with his leg hanging off in front of you?
Yeah.
And so we have a triage conversation with the prospect. And that's just basically finding out where they are in the process. Like your example of the people going around the display homes. None of these questions ever get asked.
No.
They don't ask, like you said, have you got a block?
Yeah.
What's your budget? What's your deadline? Where are you at in the process?
Yeah. Why now?
Yeah. That's one of the questions. It's the three questions.
Yeah.
That you modify them so they sound like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why now is the first question.
Yeah.
In the triage conversation, what's going on in your life that has caused us to have this conversation? Like, where are you in the process? What do you need? Well, that's the second question. What specifically do you think I can help you with? So you're now asking for some specificity. And then the third question is this a sooner thing or a later thing for you? So why now? Why me? Is this a sooner or later thing? They're the fundamentals of the 3 questions of the triage call. And the purpose of the triage call is to identify whether, and this is about as blatant as I can get, I like you.
Yeah.
That's it. Because the next step is for us to spend an hour or 90 minutes together face to face in our initial meeting. Plus, there's in our process, we send out a thing called a thud pack or a credibility pack. And I encourage our builders to make it expensive for the builders. Like, get it printed up properly, put it in a really great box, have it delivered by courier so it gets there same day if possible.
This is prior to the face-to-face meeting?
Prior to the face-to-face meeting.
Yep.
So now I'm on the phone to John Blake, prospect, and I'm asking him these questions. And I go, yeah, I like John. I think he's in the right place in his process for us to move to the next space, which is the initial meeting. And I'm confident enough to spend $250, $350 sending out this credibility pack. That makes a big thud when it hits the kitchen bench, because the heavier it is, the more impressive it is. The sooner it turns up at the front door after the phone call finishes, the more impressive it is. Imagine if you were on the phone. And
does it have education-based marketing stuff in it, or does it have merch in it, or a combination?
Like, it has frequently asked questions. It has should ask questions. So they start to go, oh shit, no one's asked me that before. I've just learned something. This guy's protecting me from a problem already.
Yep.
It might have some, really nice coffee or some honey or something. It's just a nice gift or something like that. Obviously, it will have testimonials and past projects and, ideas about design and functionality and things to think about to avoid the things that can cost you a fortune and most people don't know about. And so it's like this, it blows their mind when they open it.
Awesome.
And so you've separated from everybody else instantly before you even get there. But I need to do a good job in this triage conversation before I'm going to spend a few $100 on sending that out to you.
Yeah. Awesome.
But it's kind of worth it, and I'd love your thoughts on that as to the difference in the outcome when you get to this face-to-face meeting. And the objective of the face-to-face meeting is to have them agree to pay you money to go and do the quote, which is called a sale, by the way.
Yep. Yeah.
What would be the difference potentially in the outcome if there is a massive amount of trust and you've separated yourself from the pack with something like the questionnaire, the conversation on the phone, the credibility pack lobs? What's going to be the difference in the dynamic in that conversation when you get there?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, I've been helping clients to do this and have used that process for a long time. And if you can get it right, and it's the right, the right person, and it's the right market, and the info is set up in the right way that, like you said, solves problems, eludes them. We talk about creating, 3 or 4 gee, I didn't know that moments. If that pack is presented in a way that starts solving them problems before you even meet with them, then often you'll rock up to that meeting. They've already made a decision to work with you before you even met them face to face. Yeah. Which it's pretty powerful. I mean, I had one client that I sent one of these packs to that I literally felt like I was having a meeting about a project that had started without me. That's the feeling I got. Like I walked in and they'd made a decision to hire me and I hadn't even got there yet. And the project had started and I was like obviously the focal point of the project, because I was going to be the one doing all the training and rolling everything out, they'd made the call.
Yeah.
It was quite surreal. Like it's like nothing that's ever happened to me before. So yeah, I'm sure that works a treat.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the most frustrating things for me is like we're putting this sort of thing together, but more often than not, I get feedback from our members to say, we are doing this project for these people because I was the only one who returned the call, or I was the only one who turned up when I said I was going to. And I'm going, like, can we set the bar any lower? Like, can we? It's just, and I say to our guys all of the time, that can't be our standard. Like, what's gold standard, and then what's after that? That's what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
Please don't settle for, getting the job just because you're the only one who turned up. And I can't believe that people see that as a feature. Like, oh, he was a standout builder. He returned my phone call.
Yeah, crazy. It's like the Stephen Bradbury.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The Stephen Bradbury close.
Approach to winning work. So then the face-to-face meeting happens, and then at the end of that, they agree to pay a fee to have that quote done. And is that fee like significant, or is it sort of
can be like it depends on the builder, it depends on the project.
Yep.
If it's a smaller project, it may only be a small fee, but we've had members that are asking $5,000-$8,000 to put a proposal together.
Yeah.
And if you put your pencil to it, if it's a $800,000 build or something like that,
1%.
Well, yeah, but it's the amount of money doing that properly can save is massive.
Yeah.
Like to me, it's like an insurance policy. And I always say to our guys, like, what we need to be doing is maybe put in your thud pack a box set of grand designs. Send them a box set of grand designs so they can watch that before you get there, because every single project goes way over time.
Yeah, and way over
budget. And the simple reason for that every single time is that there isn't project management. There's builders there, there's builders building stuff, but there isn't project management. Project management is the preparation, it's the planning, it's the sequence of events, it's the deep understanding of what needs to happen before that and what can possibly happen in plan B and plan C, and it can save tens of thousands of dollars.
A lot of people who listen to the podcast want to know what we do over at Master Dealmaker Secrets. And effectively what we do is we work with sales professionals and business owners all over the world who are seeing massive increases in their top line sales revenue. So we help business owners and sales professionals to effectively focus on the three key drivers to growing sales revenue in your business. The first one is controlling the message that you send out into the marketplace so that potential clients see and hear and read what you do as an opportunity as opposed to your competitors. The second thing that we do is we help you to create a direct path to the 20% of your ideal clients that will deliver 80% of the revenue. So everyone knows the 80-20 rule. We help you to develop a direct path to the 20% of the people that are going to give you 80% of your sales revenue in your business. And the third thing that we allow you to do, that we create a process for, is for you to be able to double the amount of leads that you get that convert into paying clients. So if this is of interest, we do have an application-only process to become involved in this particular program. And to get to there, all you need to do is to go to www.johnblakescall.com. So it's JOHNBLAKESCALL.com, and there's a couple of questions to answer there. And then what you'll do is get on a quick conversation with me, and I can find out a little bit more about what you've got going on in your business and see potentially whether what you are doing would be a fit for what we could help you with. And at that point, I can extend an invitation if it's a fit, and you can make the choice to come on board or not. So that's the opportunity. That would be the next step if you're looking at how you can take things to the next level. If you're enjoying what you're hearing on the podcast, if you're getting value from it, I invite you to do that, and I will look forward to talking to you. The website is www.johnblakescall.com. Talk to you soon. I say this all the time. I hear myself saying, you know how you hear yourself repeating yourself all the time? I have this thing that I say all the time, and it's if you get the first 15% of a project right, the rest will flow beautifully, typically. If you balls the first 15% up, what happens?
Well, it all turns to custard pretty much.
Yeah, it all goes progressively pear-shaped. And you can apply this to a day. You can apply this to a party. I mean, occasionally you might snatch, victory from the jaws of defeat. But
Stephen Bradbury.
But you've exactly right. But you've got it stacked up against you. I mean, if everyone's prepared, if everyone knows what to expect from everyone else and when to expect it, well, then there's not too many things that can go wrong.
No.
And so, rather than just pumping out, 10 building quotes a month, which is probably a stretch anyway, but even if you were pumping out, 5 building quotes a month, you're not going to spend the amount of attention to detail as what you would if someone's investing $8,000.
No. And that's a great point.
Yeah.
And if you look at the statistics of how many quotes get created and how many get the nod, people seem to think that a free quote's actually free. Well, when you go and you scratch the surface and find out what's actually going on, if you go and get 3 free quotes, you can only pick one. That builder who you picked, on average, has done another 3 before he got that 4th one. So they roughly getting 1 in every 4.
Yep.
And that means that there is their time costs money.
Yep.
And so they've had to spend time that they haven't been paid for doing those 3 quotes that didn't get accepted. So the guy who gets the quote accepted, you accept that builder's quote, in the pricing that they have for your project, you are paying part or full of the quotes for somebody else that didn't take them on.
That's such a good point. Because they're going to cover their ass somehow.
They have to.
Yeah.
They absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And so,
especially if they've got like an estimating team and liaising with other trades and
and free sucks for everybody because free, if the guy, and this is how it traditionally happens. Like they've been out of bed since 5, they're on site at 7. They've done a full day on the tools. They've been traveling around. They've had meetings with clients. They've came home to their family, inhaled a bit of food, and now they're in the office putting quotes together, stuffed, and have the mindset that I may not get this.
Yeah.
And what traditionally happens, particularly now with price rises and all that sort of stuff, they're putting principal sums. So they're just adding a fictitious price in there for the kitchen or the vanity or the this or the that. Or PC items, prescribed costs, and they're not part of the quote. It's like that's just a guess for that bit. And there's all of these different parts of the quote where they're guessing what they reckon that they'll pay. But when it comes time to pay, they go, "Oh no, that thing that we allowed $2,000 for is actually $12,000."
Yeah, So you get all these revisions.
So out come the variations, and out comes the anger and the frustration and the disappointment and just the friction. And if I can just also add to what we're talking about, the underlying key to making this successful, I think, is the builder understanding what their product is.
Yeah, of course.
And most builders don't understand what their product is because they think it's the house or the reno or the extension. The building. Your product is the quality of your customer's experience.
Yeah.
And if you knew that, you would be having conversations with your team, your your employees, your subbies, your suppliers about helping you improve the quality of your product.
Yeah.
If you're just focused on the quality of your customer's experience, everything changes.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I went, again, I'm thinking back to some of these display home companies that I've worked with, and I remember doing some research leading into one of them, and I think I spoke to about a dozen people. And I remember, I'll never forget this one conversation that I had with this woman. And she said, it's so painful. And she said, but sometimes I think it must be a little bit like childbirth, like you forget and then you go back for more. So she was likening the process of building a house to easily the most painful thing that most women will ever have to experience, which is giving birth. So there has to be an opportunity in there.
Massive.
Right. And almost everyone I spoke to, in fact, I got the gig, right? So this is, I got one of these gigs because one of the clients that was building this place, and this is a premium brand. I won't mention the brand, but it's positioned as a premium brand in West Australia. She was having so many dramas with this place, and it was just one thing after another. It was like over the space of the build, I think they went through like 4 or 5 site supervisors because, something would go horribly wrong. That guy would get moved on. Then they get the new guy, and then he'd come in and something go wrong. He'd get moved on. And it was anything that could possibly go wrong was going wrong. And I knew the sales manager, and I rang him and I just said, look, I got to tell you, this woman is having an absolute shocker. I don't know what you guys are doing to her, but she is telling anyone who will listen. And I know that you guys have got so much invested in the brand, and that you're positioned as this premium brand in WA. This cannot be helping. And he just said, "Oh, what do you do again?"
Yeah.
and I told him, and that was how I ended up getting that gig. And so part of it was like, mate, I need to ring some of these people and find out what their experience is. And I don't think I spoke to anyone that had smooth sailing. Like, they were all scarred in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And I think it's because of what we're talking about. It's poorly scoped, not enough attention to detail at the front end. The free 3 quote thing, and the the bad singles dance, as I'm sure you've heard that term before, where there's 5 or 6 people and they're all lining up to get the one girl, and it's just fraught with disaster because it's just not properly scoped out. And the person isn't committed. Yeah. They're not committed to any of them.
Yeah.
And then they end up getting the gig with somebody who wasn't really committed to them in the first place. But, they made the decision based on what most people's default setting is, which is, let's get it for the cheapest possible price.
Yeah.
And that person probably, that builder probably cut their margins, which are pretty skinny anyway, to get the work. And then they scratch their head and wonder why things go pear-shaped.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we address this whole price thing. But I just feel, I'm absolutely convinced that if you just make that one little shift and you genuinely believe my product is the quality of the client experience, how does that change how I answer the phone the very first time? Yeah. How does it change how I do the triage call? How does it change what we focus on in the initial meeting? How does it change our conversations in our team meetings, our on-site meetings? How does it change the discussions that we have with our clients throughout the project? If our primary objective is to deliver a super high quality experience, all the shit that we all get focused on and bent out of shape doesn't matter. And the beauty of it is that, and I know that you're a student of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and Stephen Covey talks about the emotional bank account.
Yeah.
And it's like a real bank account. We deposit make deposits in the bank account, and we unfortunately make withdrawals. Deposits are, complimenting and being reliable and being loyal and all of these sorts of things. They're deposits. And sometimes in the building trade, there are withdrawals that there's nothing you can do about it. That it was a weather thing or a supply thing that was completely out of your control. But you might be held responsible in the prospect's eyes because you're the person they're dealing with. And unless you have a massive balance in the emotional bank account, you can get overdrawn.
Yeah.
So if our focus is the quality of the customer's experience, and we do it every day, we talk about it every day, we deliver it, we measure it, we improve it, we refine it, it becomes our culture, it becomes our priority. We can't help but be putting massive deposits in the emotional bank account all of the time. And then when the shit hits the fan, which it will in a building project,
you got some brownie points. You can cash in some. Yeah, you can cash in some brownie points. Yeah.
And the customer goes, John, that was beyond your control, mate. There's nothing you could have done about it. They start to defend you.
Yeah, correct. I love that.
Make it your culture. Understand what your product is.
And then the other thing is, like, if that's your philosophy, then you need not worry about where your next client's coming from.
No.
Because I've also worked with some of these builders on referral from the digital agencies that generate leads for them. And I can tell you that in some cases they're paying like for, and this is what the digital agencies call a conversion, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is across the board, right? So for about every 100 leads that get generated, and by a lead, I'm talking about a first name, potentially an email address, which is normally someone's spam email address, the Hotmail address they've had since high school, right?
I met someone yesterday who had a Yahoo address.
Yeah, exactly, right. And potentially a telephone number, or they might have done the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 routine.
Yeah.
So to get one of those, it's something ridiculous. It's like $600 because it's because there's so many builders and they're all competing for the same thing. So it's like to actually talk to a live client, by the time they actually get a lead that they're talking to, it's like $3-4 grand.
Yeah.
$3 or $4 grand. And so, yeah, this is such a fundamental shift, because if you can get this right, you can probably like not even worry about your digital agency, because they're going to have, it's going to be that much of an anomaly in terms of that person's experience, that the next person that, you guys built, who'd you use? Oh, you got it, and they're going to be, without you even asking, they're going to be like, oh yeah, you should talk to them. They don't take everyone though,
There you go. Yeah.
And then suddenly, they're on the front foot. They're coming to you. Oh, I hope we can get them. Just hope you work with us.
Yeah. Now the builder is the prize.
Yes. So I love this. And I had a sense that you were, I had a bit of an understanding of what you were doing and this.
I probably learned most of it from you, so that's why you understand it.
Well, we certainly recognize a couple of things in there for sure.
Yeah.
But I love the way. I didn't
invent any of it. I can tell you that for sure and certain.
What was that?
I didn't invent any of it. It's all been borrowed.
No. But I love the way you put it together, especially the front end part. It's like, the call and then the behavior. It's like, hey, this is to work out how we can best help, to make sure that we don't miss anything. Here's a questionnaire. I'm going to send this through now. When do you think you'll have it back to me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't want to fill out a questionnaire.
Yeah.
I just want to quote.
Cool. Here's Bruce's number.
No problem. What I'd recommend is that you talk to this guy and this guy. They'll happily talk to you and give you a free quote without getting you to complete a questionnaire. Their numbers are.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And the other thing, just to sort of wrap it up in a nice, neat bow, that the initial meeting, when you get face to face, it's important that it's choreographed.
Yes.
So you've got your visual aids, as you would expect, to keep things in the right sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you build rapport to begin with. And then we talk about, so what's going to happen in this meeting is we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. So you actually map out exactly the parts that we're going to cover in this meeting and give them just a real basic overview as to why we're doing each of those and how that represents value to them. So
Yes.
they can see that we need to do all of these things and they can see what's in it for me, right, from their perspective with each of those things. And then at the end of that part of the presentation, so we might be in our hour's presentation by 7 to 10 minutes at this stage. So that's all we've invested so far.
Mm-hmm.
You've outlined this, and then you say, and at the end of this meeting, if we've answered all of your questions, so you have no more questions, we have, to your standard, answered all of your concerns. So, you're not worried about anything. You're not confused about anything. You're completely clear on everything. And you are satisfied that we are the right fit for you. At the end of this meeting, the next step is for you to decide whether you're going to invest a fee to have your proposal put together. So you might not have expected this. It's not what a lot of builders do. It may not have been what you did in the past. And the reason that we do it are these reasons. And you give them a whole bunch of reasons, and there are a ton. We've even got a sheet that I'm happy to give whoever wants one. It's got 6 examples as to why free costs you so much more than paid, and how paid is so much more valuable. And you can go through those reasons and give them the reasons as to why that there is a fee for this proposal, and why we don't do free anymore. We used to do it, and we found that it caused these problems for you. So because our commitment is the quality of your experience, we won't do it any other way, because this gives us the best chance of delivering the best value that you will ever get and the highest quality experience that would be possible through a building project.
I love it.
So how do you feel about that? Is that something you're prepared to do? So we're doing the trial close of whether they are open. If we tick all the boxes, they have to be happy. Are you prepared to invest in a paid proposal if all of this makes sense to you? And we're asking this question about the 7 to 10 minute part of the initial meeting, because I'm not going to go through all of the initial meeting and ask them about the project and the budget and the this and the that and the other if they've said to me up front, mate, I won't be paying for a quote.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah, you pull up stumps. The other
very
thing
rarely happens though, because we've done all of that other stuff with the thud pack and the call and whatever.
So, what one of the other things I always hear myself saying is in any sales process, each step simply sells the next step of the process.
Yep. That's exactly how this works.
But the other thing I love about what you've got is that the commitment gradient starts out relatively low.
Yep.
And then it goes up over time. Yep. So with each step, there's a slightly bigger commitment leading to the
ultimate.
The second last commitment, which is you're investing in us putting together a detailed outline for your building project. And then obviously the major commitment is their initial deposit and the commencement of the actual project itself.
Yep. And that the statistics of that happening after someone's already invested in that builder to put their proposal together just goes through the roof.
Like I imagine the win rate would be would be
100%.
Incredibly high. Yeah. Because
in fact, the stories are that rare where somebody has paid for a proposal and hasn't gone ahead with the builder. I can only remember one, and it was in Victoria. He's one of our members. He's still with us, and it was for his next door neighbour. Mm-hmm. So he didn't really know the guy, but the guy knew he was a builder, so he got him to do the whole thing. They had the meetings, and he paid for the proposal. And our guy put absolutely everything in there, and that was what it was going to be. And he knew he was confident he'd bring it in on that price. The guy must have talked to his uncle or whatever and just decided to, I'm just going to get another builder to do a free quote.
Mm-hmm.
Went with the free quote. And as it turns out, he was something like, it was a bit over $50,000 over budget before it even got out of the ground.
Wow.
Because there were so many mistakes and so many things that were principal sums or PC items or whatever, that the variations started before the project came out of the ground.
Wow. Yeah, that's scary.
So, but the other thing you mentioned, I think, is worth covering is price and you know, what's your philosophy on it? Mine is that people, I know statistically that, you know, you can back up that 80% of people make decisions based on value and 20% make decisions based on price. In my brain, 100% of people make decisions based on value. When it feels right, they say yes.
Yeah, well, all things being equal, you know, if you're lined up
in the absence of value,
if you're lined up in the bad singles dance, and the person hasn't actually learned what criteria they should be considering when they choose to buy off a particular vendor, be it a builder or anything else, if they haven't learned about what the actual most important criteria are, then everyone buys on price. Because that's, you know, that's the only, they've only got that tool. They've only got the hammer, so they see everything as a nail.
Yeah.
They've only got the criteria of price, so they just judge everything on price.
Yeah.
But if you've along the way, and that's the beauty of this process, is that along that commitment gradient, they're learning things. You're creating these, gee, I didn't know that moments. Well, no one else has asked me that. No one else has told me that. Oh, wow. Is that right? Oh, wow. Do I need to consider that? Oh, wow. Can I avoid that extra cost if I do this? Oh, wow. What you mean to say that if that most people make this mistake and no one really knows about it? You know, so so now they're not looking at that because you've actually given them the criteria that they should be considering. And suddenly everyone's not equal. It's like, oh, well, you guys are saying stuff that other people aren't saying.
Yeah. I think that something that can make a really big difference with a builder's mindset is if they understand what their prospect is looking for. And I'm just going to tell you what they're looking for rather than you need to figure it out, because even the prospect more often than not would not be able to answer this question. What really are you after? What really do you want your builder's role to be? Because they'll think, well, I want a quality house at a fair price. That's what the prospect will be thinking consciously. What they are really genuinely desiring is to be guided, protected, and supported.
Yep.
That's what they're actually after.
Yep.
And if you, through your questionnaire, through your triage call, through your thud pack, through your initial meeting and understanding them and helping them understand what the purpose of their project is, what the function of it is, and helping them, help guide them through the maze of confusion and overwhelm, help support them and make them feel good that making decisions based on your experience and your knowledge, if they trust you, is a good thing. So you're supporting them in their decisions, and you're protecting them by asking them all of the right questions to say, have you considered this? What do you think about that? What if this happened instead of that happening? And they go, oh my Lord, we never thought of that. That would have been a disaster. So I'm guiding, supporting, and protecting. And going back to the price, people will always default to price in the absence of any perception of value. And if you follow this quality client pathway that we've talked about, it's just metric shit tons of value from their perspective all the way through that process. There is no way that they can't see the differential in value between you and somebody else. Therefore, price becomes secondary. I realize that there is a budget. I realize that when your pockets are turned inside out and you've robbed the kid's piggy bank and that's the end of the money, there is an end point.
Mm.
But more often than not, what people do is they give you two budgets: the safe budget that they think they want to do it for, but then have a look at grand designs. How many of them have gone,
Blow
this
out.
is our budget? Oh, but then when we got through the project, we wanted this, and we thought, we're committed to this now. We want to do this. We didn't want to waste the opportunity. So instead of our $500,000 budget, it cost us $2.7 million.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there's so many good reasons that to make sure that you are really as much as possible in that category of one, and it actually makes a big difference. Like I'm also thinking about a guy that I actually swim with, and he went to one of these big high profile brands to get a quote. They got the quote and they weren't 100% happy with it, but they paid for the quote. So they paid for the design, and I think it was maybe $3 or $4 grand or something. And then they decided not to go ahead with it. And they went with another builder. And so even though they'd paid $4 grand to this, well-known brand, this well-known brand contacted them and said, you stole the design, even though you paid for it, it wasn't yours. And they sued them. And they've got a guy on staff who is responsible for doing just that. He goes after people that have paid for a design, but in their paperwork it says that they actually own it, even though they paid $4 grand for it. And he sues people that have gone with a competitor.
I assume in an attempt to endear rapport and connection with their company and the people that they're suing. Is that why they're doing it?
I guess they're trying to force them into doing business with them.
Yeah, but it's like, are they going to love you? Are they going to refer you?
I know.
Like, how crazy.
Look, it's insane. Like I couldn't make that up. I couldn't make that up. No way. Like it's insane. And I think it ended up costing them an additional 20 grand, 25 grand just to get these guys off their back.
Yeah.
And but the thing that blew me away is that they've got an in-house solicitor whose sole job is to do that.
Yeah. And so it kind of reflects the culture of the organization, what the leadership prioritizes. Yeah. I guess they're not thinking that our product is the quality of the client's experience. I suspect they don't.
No, they're not thinking that at all. But it just goes to show. I mean, you mentioned that the bar's low, and even I guess with the premium brands, the in inverted commas premium brand, the bar's low with them as well. So there's some great opportunities for builders that really value the value of their work and also, as we've said, the quality of the client's experience. Yeah, there are huge opportunities, and these shifts, even though they take a bit of scripting and a bit of discipline, they're not massive things. They're not big shifts.
It's nothing.
And you cut yourself out a stack of unnecessary, quoting on people that were never going to do anything in the first place. In fact, they might not have even had a block of land, but you're just flicking out a quote because that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah. So even if you put your pencil to it and thought, okay, let's just for ease of mathematics, a quote takes me 10 hours. Like that'd be a very, very short quote. But let's say it takes 10 hours. You're doing them for free. You're doing one. You're getting one out of every 4. So there's 30 hours. Let's say that's a month. And the difference between the profitability of a project where the client has gone through our quality client pathway, they've got massive connection, massive rapport, massive trust. They're happy to pay for the proposal to be put together. They are more than happy to pay for what isn't really a premium price. It's what it should cost.
Yeah.
That includes project management fees and all of that sort of stuff. I can't tell you how many times our builders, they get really nervous when they've added project management fees and they're asking for their first proposal fee and all of that sort of stuff. And they've followed the process, and the builder's really nervous when they're asking for it. And the client goes, yeah, no worries, mate. That makes sense to me.
Easy. Yep. Good to go. Yeah.
And, but the thing is, you know, at these basic maths, you're saving 30 hours a month. You are working with a client that is prepared to pay a premium. They enjoy your interaction. They trust you. It's a wonderful experience for the builder and the client. So there's less stress, there's less problems, there's less costs, there's more time. You can use that 30 hours a week, 30 hours a month to blow your client's mind by learning about them and surprising them and doing little things for them and all of that. So they go and tell everyone else, and then you've got people just like them lined up around the block to come into your business who are prepared to pay for a proposal and follow your process. Which business do you want?
Yeah, that's it. Plus, you increase the possibility of you actually winning the thing by about 400%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Mate,
you said, they hope that they'll be taken on by the builder because of your referral.
Yeah. No,
They don't take everyone.
There's so much in this. And I do have a lot of trades and construction businesses that listen to the podcast, and I'm sure that they're going to get an absolute stack out of this, mate. So I do have to go. I've got my young bloke's graduation this evening, so I don't want to be late for that. But mate,
Don't
thanks
be late
so
for
much.
family stuff.
As always, we've had an incredibly valuable conversation. I think that people will get a stack out of listening to this. So, mate, thanks so much for being on. And yeah, we might have to do part 2 on each other's podcast. I think there's plenty more that we can talk about. And mate, I always enjoy it. So thanks again for being on.
Likewise, it's been an absolute pleasure.
You've been listening to Master Dealmaker Secrets with John Blake. Subscribe to get more in-depth strategies and maximize your sales process with new episodes every other week. And double your inquiry to sale conversion with the lead flow you already have. Go to johnblakeaudio.com for his exclusive, free, no-fluff audio training and companion PDF guide.